Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Communication in Plants, Neuronal Aspects of Plant Life. And in this episode, we're going to be going over this book that was put out, I think it was 2005 or 2006. And give me just a moment here. Get this going here. And let's get right into it. If everyone can hear me clearly, please just put a little something in the chat. And of course, make sure you hit the like. Meantime, let's get started here. Off the screen. There we go. Cool. Here, let's get this here. Zoom in a little bit more for everyone to see. Center it a little bit there too. See how that looks. All right, good enough. All right, excellent, guys. So let's get started here. Communication in plants, neuronal aspects of plant life. And that's your author. I'm not going to try to say all those names. They're not American. Okay, so the preface. As we enter the new millennium, plant biology is witnessing dramatic advancements in studies related to the complex behavior of higher plants, which are now beginning to reveal intelligent behavior. So we're talking about higher plants exhibiting complex behavior that are revealing intelligent behavior. Surprisingly, it is plant ecology which is leading the revelation that plants behave as though having a conscious comprehension of themselves and of their environment. Charles Darwin was the first who noted the abilities of plants to communicate with their environment and translate this information into active movements of their organs. And that was in 1880. Plants recognize other organisms, such as bacteria, fungi, and other plants, insects, birds, and animals that presumably also include us, humans. These guys came up with that. For instance, to accomplish their sexual reproduction, plants rely on complex interactions with insects and birds. In order to achieve this, and as Charles Darwin was one of the first to show in 1862, plants generate specifically shaped sexual organs, which allow insects and birds to access their flowers. All right, so we're going to hold off for here for a second because I'm sure the sex bots are kind of come blazing in the chat any second. I just want to be prepared for that. I think we're just about ready for that. Okay, guys. Any questions, anything along the line, type in the chat, and we can always stop and elaborate on any of these points. And if for any reason you don't hear anything, also let me know. But it seems like we're streaming loud and clear. Okay. Moreover, plants reward these pollinators with nectar and other compounds, which are both attractive and a necessary part of the diet of these insect bird feeders. That was from a 2005 study. Complex interactions have been recorded between insect pheromones and plant volatile semiochemicals. That's 2004. Now, if you were on the panel I did on semiotics, you'd know exactly what semiochemicals are. They're signs or chemicals that are used as signs or signals to transfer information between different entities, right? In the case of many these guys, the insect attracting plant volatiles with a dung-like odor are exactly those chemicals which attract insects to animal dung, where they would otherwise gather and reproduce. These plants are thus masters of a deceptive and intelligent strategy for their own reproduction. Moreover, plants appear to possess an innate type of immunity system, which closely resembles that of animals. Now, this is quite profound. How many people we get here in the chat? I want some feedback if anyone understands what we're talking about here. Plants appear to possess an innate type of immunity system. Innate already is acquired within them, right? Which closely resembles that of animals. And interestingly, in this respect, there are also several parallels between the recognition of self and non-self in plant breeding systems and histocompatibility in animals. So let's get some examples here. As you notice, we have references to every study. So these statements aren't just someone's opinion. This is a meta study of many other studies. So we're kind of getting a good, an overall view of some of the most recent findings within true science. True science looking for answers of things we don't understand yet. It's rare to see these days, but as we see here, that plant ecology is actually where the most revelations are being found as far as this particular topic is concerned. Let's see here, carnivorous plants are fascinating. So these are the most obvious and the ones, for instance, that Darwin would comment on, because it's so easy to see how the environment can cause an action within their organs. All right, let's proceed. The plant roots of Fabaceae can recognize and domesticate rhizobium bacteria within nodules. And the composite bacterioids then supply the host plants with nitrogen. That's strange, huh? So they can recognize and domesticate these bacteria, right, within nodules. And the composite bacterioids then supply the host plants with nitrogen. Less well known, perhaps, is that some plants recognize and communicate with ants, and vice versa, which protect them against herbivores, pathogens, as well as competing vegetation. Plants, in turn, reward the ants by secreting nectar and constructing special food bodies. That's interesting there. Plants actively recognize the identity of herbivores and are then able to recruit their enemies. Wow, for instance, plant roots attacked by insect predators release volatiles, which then attract particular species of nematodes that kill these predators. In addition, by releasing volatiles into the aerial environment, plant shoots infected by pathogens inform their neighboring plants about imminent danger, and they can increase their immunity against these pathogens. That's kind of interesting because I remember hearing something, I don't know if it's true or not, because it was in the mass media, about dogs that could sniff out cancer and diseases and things like that, immunity problems. And I wonder if there is some olfactory odor component to this, releasing volatiles into the aerial environment. That could be actually a communication we're supposed to be aware of. I've heard about diabetes, you could smell that too. But this is just stuff I've heard. Again, we're just reading stuff here. Those are my opinions. They do not reflect the host of the show. Let's proceed. Intriguingly, the signature of released volatiles is characteristic for herbivore damage, but it is different from that resulting from a general wound response. Nicotiana tenuata, attacked by the hook hornworm, accumulates nicotine, which poisons acetylcholine receptors and is thus toxic to those organisms which rely on neuromuscular junctions. So, in case anyone forgot their high school, whatever, biology, acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter chemical that's used for transmitting signals. And so when you're transmitting a lot of electrical signals between neurons, they use acetylcholine to make the transfer between the gaps. And when there's too much of that going on, then there's an enzyme that goes out, acetylcholine, something that mitigates that when you want to calm down the responses through the nerves. So let's continue here because I'm skipping some of the Latin stuff. Remember, this is a scientific text we're reading, so it is geared towards the research scientist. However, it's definitely accessible for the average reader, I believe. It's just a few words in here that can kind of that might have escaped us over the years. Let's continue. So let's get back to what we were talking about here. This is intriguingly the signature of released volatiles is characteristic for herbivore damage, but is different from that resulting from a general wound response. So that's the signature of the released volatiles. Okay, so nicotine, this plant here, attacked by the hook hornworm, this guy, accumulates nicotine, which poisons acetylcholine receptors, is thus toxic to those organisms, right? Which rely on neuromuscular junctions. So that means it paralyzes them. In plain English, I guess. Interestingly, in this respect, plants expressed neuronal acetylcholinesterase. There it is. That's the enzyme that mitigates the acetylcholine, right? That makes it calm down the nerve responses, right? So plants express neuronal acetylcholinesterase and use acetylcholine also for their neuronal cell-to-cell, neuronal-like cell-to-cell communication. Nub says this is easy to understand, so I don't need to repeat that then. I think we can quite understand this clear. Let's move along. Furthermore, during their phylogeny, right? We all know what phylogeny is. That's as you see something developing from the zygote to the fetus and to the birth of the animal, that you see the whole sequence of genetic evolution throughout. You know, you look like a chicken embryo at one point, then you're looking like a whatever lizard and whatever. And then you come out looking like a human. But along the way, it's you see this phylogeny. So plants can also switch. So during that process, they can actually switch from an autotrophic to heterotrophic lifestyle, a feat which, in the case of parasitic or carnivorous plants, like we were talking about before, requires the active selection of suitable host prey organisms. Okay, cool. Went to school for this, yeah. Okay, I guess that makes it easier to understand. There you go. For some reason, I didn't like that word, and so I fixed it there. Yeah, that's we all went to school for this. I thought back in high school, some of the stuff was taught, some of the basic stuff, but really, it was a long time ago for me too. It was before any of these books were written, so I guess I have an excuse to kind of have it fall behind me a bit, but I'm trying to keep up here. If anyone wants to pipe in, and Nubs, if you want to throw in some definitions along the way, it'll help, because I'm not going to be pretentious and expect everyone to understand every word here, because I don't all the time either. I'm just trying to keep up with the ones I do remember. I do have somewhat of that background too, so it's just in the past. And I'd like to just keep everyone on topic here so we don't leave any word behind. All right, let's continue. Plants are extremely mechanosensitive. So they're sensitive to motions and such, right? Cool. Oh, well, you're going to like that. This is a perfect topic for you. Let's see if you're keeping the conversation happy amongst your landscape designs. And then we got to do another topic too. We're doing, it's called Do Better Design, which it's an incredible topic too, about design in general. All right, let's continue here. So plants are extremely mechanosensitive. Their roots exhibit thigmotrophism, okay, whatever that is, which enables them to explore with an animal-like curiosity their environment in a continual search for water and solutes Those are the dissolved nutrients. And their shoots sometimes seek support by means of tendrils, assisted in this task by volatiles such as jasminates. Jasminates. Is that like jasmine? So yeah, the little tendrils they send out when their vines growing. Those things are incredible. Root apices. So this is plural of apex, I believe. Apices. How do you say it then, right? Root apices constantly monitor, so the tops, the root tops, or tips, I guess you call them. Root apices constantly monitor the numerous physical parameters of the soil and use this information in their search for better niches for survival and reproduction. In this behavior, plant roots closely resemble fungi, and indeed, most roots enter symbiotic interactions with mycorrhizal fungi in order to increase their efficiency in obtaining critical ions such as phosphorus. So on this one here, we get the mycorrhizin, right? The mycorrhizal fungi. These are the fungi that actually live on the roots, and they're the ones that are actually responsible for converting as ions, critical ones such as phosphorus. So this is actually where that happens, where it becomes bioavailable to the plant. And believe it or not, most plant diseases originate in this environment right here, in the culture of the mycorrhizal fungi. In fact, roots might prove to be descendants of ancient fungi, which, by entering into close association with their symbiotic photoautotrophs, the ones photo light autotrophs, little parts moving by themselves, wow, have developed into a heterotrophic roots. Wow, there are, after all, close resemblances between the anatomies and functions of apices of both rhizomorphs and roots. While photoautotrophs have developed into the autotrophic shoots of the organisms now known as vascular plants. So they're talking about mushrooms here. This scenario is strongly supported by present-day pioneer colonizers, such as lichens, which, just as was the case with early land plants, are able to survive even in the most extreme of environmental conditions. Yep, the fungus, the mycorrhizal. That's really, there's a whole bunch of layers of symbiosis along that process, but that's a critical area right there. So, literally, plants nourish the whole world. They intercept the light energy arriving on Earth from the sunbeams and transform it via energy poor inorganic compounds into energy rich organic matter, which then serves as the food for all heterotrophic organisms. Also, the gasoline which fuels many of man's mechanical devices is of plant origin, which some may say is questionable. Plants thus stand at the interface between a seemingly hostile and violent universe and a fertile planet Earth teeming with life. Hey, the ascending ancient made it. Welcome. Oh yes, thanks. This is a great topic. It is the fungus among us we're talking about here. And we got to look at a ghost pipe, I guess, at some point. Oh, I've never heard of this. It sounds familiar, though, the ghost pipe. But I digress. Let's get back here. We might postulate that if we can understand plants better, they could reveal to us something of the great mystery of life. Aristotle and his pupils were convinced that plants have complex inner life, including thoughts, memories, dreams, and plans for the future. Unfortunately, our contemporary science considers plants rather as passive creatures to be exploited if discovered to be useful and to be cleared away if not. However, their passivity, that is, their inability to change their location or to communicate via sounds, is only relative to the hyperactivity of human existence in the fleeting time scale of man's artifacts. But the recent advances in ecology and phenomen phenomenology sorry phenomenology outlined above urge a change in this biased perception of higher plants. I just don't see how anyone can say that word with a straight face. I'm going to try it one more time. Phenomenology. Oh, Lord. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's phenomenology. It just is a strange word to say. All right. So we're talking about classes here, right? And but recent advances in ecology and in the finding your phenotypes, right? The science of making these classes outlined above using a change in this biased perception of higher plants, urging a change in this phenomenology so we can look at a better perception, a more unbiased perception of higher plants, of them not being so passive and not subject to human hyperactivity of existence. All right, let's continue here. We should also remember that action potentials, the very characteristic and rapidest way of neuronal communication, were discovered in plants in 1873. In those early days, the cellular basis of animal brains was not accepted, and the neuronal process in brains were just starting to be explored. Yet, word of the week, not of the word of the, better put it up here, word of the week, strong word of the week. Uh, yeah, it could be. Yeah, there's some pretty good words in here. All right. Since then, a large amount of data has been accumulated on electric phenomena in plants, and that's 1971, 2004. These are some pretty good authors if you're interested in the electrical phenomena in plants. Phototropism, yeah, that's when you know they're not mushrooms, they're phototrophs. All right, so currently, new exciting discoveries are revealing that electrical signals modulate and control such basic physiological processes in plants as photosynthesis and phototropism. So while we're here, phototropism. See here, the orientation of a plant or other organism. Phototroph is a phototrophic organism. I love these definitions; they're so terrible. So yeah, I guess it is mushrooms, but it could be anything. But they're talking about before we were talking about the fungi. All right, so unfortunately, the mainstream of plant biology has never completely accepted plant electrophysiology. So this field has survived a quasi-dormant state up until now, when exciting advances in plant biology are allowing the introduction of plant neurobiology as a newly emerging field of plant sciences. One foundation of this new science is the discovery that not only do plant cells express diverse neuronal molecules, but that they also communicate together via plant synapses. Wow, that's pretty interesting stuff too here. So magnetic fields mess with plants. We're going to find out as we continue on with this. These glimpses of the fascinating and breathtaking complexity of plants raise urgent questions which will dominate the whole field of plant biology in the next decades. In particular, do plants have some type of neuronal system which resembles that which underlies the behavior of animals? Conversely, if plants turn out to be brainless, then the question will emerge where and how they store and process the information which they obtain about both the abiotic and biotic environments. And how do they then use this information to optimize their future behavior, like planning for the future? Do plants feel, as suggested by Aristotle, and experience pain? Further, do plants hear, and can they perceive odors? The truth is that we do not know, although their extreme sensitivity to mechanical vibrations indicates that they can perceive voices, and the responses to volatile gases suggest they have a type of olfactory response. Importantly, our lack of knowledge should not justify claims that plants do not possess these abilities and properties. In fact, their complex, rational, and surely intelligent behavior suggests just the opposite. This is why we should be more sensitive to these issues and should commence serious inquiry into these urgent questions, utilizing minds trained in the scientific method, but which can also clearly differentiate between speculation and hypothesis. Finally, is it by chance that the Greek word neuron refers to vegetable fiber? In fact, this happy and synchronistic coincidence might be taken to signify that the term plant neurobiology is fully justified. This book brings together all of these new plant neuronal aspects and combines them with the classic plant electrophysiology. Plant neurobiology is commencing its emergence as a coherent science. And at that, we have our references here that we were just reading. As you can see here, there's carnivorous plants, phylogeny, and structural evolution. Let's see what we get going here in the chat before we go through some of these references. Talking to the plants, yeah, I think that's good. I'll tell you what, I've had some plants where you just put them in the right place and they're so happy and they grow so well and they can grow better than anything you can cultivate. Let's see, the mycelium network. Yeah, the mycelium network is there's a whole communication there. There are chemical signs and signals that they're sending. And ash trees. Oh, what about ash trees? I'd like to know. Down here in Florida, I don't think we get ash trees except when they're on fire. Even our trees don't burn; they're so wet. You have acquaintances? Oh, aquaponics. Okay, there you go. Aquaponics, cool. Oh, aquaponics is slick. That's I don't know. Are the roots happy in the aquaponics? That's a question. Yeah, it's a network of trees. Wow. And also bonsai. You know, I used to enjoy bonsai and still to some extent, but some say it's kind of like enslavement, bondage, and torture. It's keeping them captive and isolated. But they do make beautiful artwork. The bonsai. Well, we just did the preface here, dogma free. We can, if everyone wants to stick around, we could probably pull another chapter out of here. If I'll pull up the table of contents so we can find out what everyone would like to see out of the chapters. We've done this before. It works pretty well. I'm going to leave these references on screen for a moment here, and I'm going to load up the book here. See if I have it over here in its entirety. Sure, let's see here. Give me some moment while you guys are looking at that. Damn. Oh, wait. Second here. Where'd it go? Holy shit. There it is. Communication and plans. Here. And we should be able to get going here. There we go. It's second. Give me a moment here. I'm going to put on some music, and then we'll pull up the table of contents here. All right, we're back. Okay, here we go. All right, everyone still here? Yes. All right. So we have a table of contents here. So we have the green plant as an intelligent organism. Now, these are going to be pretty intensive stuff here. We have neurobiological view of plants and their body plan. This is interesting with the root apex as the anterior pole of the plant body. The auxin as a plant neurotransmitter. Some interesting stuff in here. Look at this. Root apices as brain-like command centers. There's your brain. Is that where the brain is? I wonder. Ancient fungal-like nature of roots. There's some interesting studies in here. There's going to be explicit ones here. We have Charles Darwin in the plant root apex, closing a gap in living systems theory as it applies to plants. Okay. Advancing the root front and brain system, the plant root brain, clues in the transition zone. So this has a pretty interesting parts to it. And we have how can plants choose the most promising organs? Experimental systems, stress increases competition, the unequal light conditions, rate of shoot development, hypothesis, branches compete. I want to hear about the war between the grasses and the trees. All right, the role of root apices in shoot growth regulation. These look kind of boring. Signals and targets triggered by self-incompatibility in plants. Recognition of self can be deadly. Wow. the actin cytoskeleton and self-incompatibility, pollen pistil interactions. Interesting stuff here. But see, this is Poppy. Yeah, this is wow, a link between actin and programmed cell death. Page 27 sounded interesting. All right, that's on the note. We get that noted here. Let's continue here. We have signal perception and transduction in plant innate immunity. Innate immunity we were talking about in the preface. Let's see here. Introduction PAMP. Oh, that's I don't know what PAMP stands for, but whatever it is. Pathogen recognition and host cultivar specific resistance. Intracellular signal transduction and plant innate immunity. That looks interesting too. All right. Nitric oxide involvement in incompatible plant pathogen interactions. Wow. Nitrous oxide and cell death. Experimental approaches for manipulation of endogenous nitrous oxide levels. Oh, look, nitrogen oxygen production during the hypersensitive disease resistance response. So yeah, let's see what else we got here. Cell division to organ shape. Nitric oxide is involved in the auxin-mediated root development. A lot about nitric oxide here. Neurotransmitters, neuroregulators, and neurotoxins in plants. That's right. Some neurotoxins in some of the plants. Wow, this one looks interesting too. And it's a short chapter too, chapter 10. For rest. Yeah, it's a good one. Hey, for rest. I guess get that one up here. Beautiful. So let's see what else we got here. Amino acid transport in plants and transport of neurotransmitters in animals, a common mechanism. That's interesting there. We have the sodium chloride dependent neurotransmitter. A lot of cationic amino acid transporters and let's see. Well, no chemistry tonight. No chemistry. From elixir, oh geez, from elixir of life to date rape drug. We could always just check out this chapter here. This looks really good. It went here by itself. It means we're supposed to read this. All right, GBH. This is interesting. Let's read this. I kind of wonder about this here. From elixir of life to date rape drug. GBH, a byproduct of the GABA shunt, figure 12.1. Figure 12.1. Gosh, don't tell me figure 12.1 somewhere else in the book. This is too long here. I can't find figure 12.1. Wait. This is 12. Wow, so this is a big chapter here. Okay, here we go. Here's 12.1. We're not doing chemistry tonight, guys. Looks like it's going to be chemistry. We can always come back to this at another time. All right, we're going to skip all this stuff here. Aminobutyric acid, gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA, was discovered in plants over half a century ago. And shortly thereafterwards, it was discovered in vertebrates. Interestingly, GABA shifted to animals when it was revealed that GABA occurs at high levels in the brain, where it plays a major role in neurotransmission. Interest in the GABA shunt in plants emerged later, following observations that GABA is largely and rapidly produced in response to biotic and abiotic stress. The breakthrough in studying GABA in plants came from molecular studies following the cloning of the calcium ion, all right, we're not going to do chemistry tonight, I promised. But there you go, enough of that. And we saw that's the GABA and GHB neurotransmitters in plants and animals. So there's some pretty good studies on that there. I wasn't that familiar with that until just now. And here you go. In case you're considered looking more into it, there it is. Goes from the mitochondrion, the chloroplast here, from the amino acid biosynthesis, and light in there. Looks like we're missing part of the other side of the page. All right. So let's get back to table of contents. That was a digression. Okay, so we were right over here. All right, number 13 was, I can't even say that much, so we're not doing that. We're doing similarities between endocannabinoid signaling. There we go. That looks like the right one there. Introduction overview of mammalian endocannabinoid signaling. It's only 2 pages long. This is probably worth reading. All right, let's just read some of what we got here in the chat so we can catch up with everyone. Let's see here. Asian doc that did a therapy test with patients, taking them to walk in the forest. Okay, cool. Yeah, I never thought of that. I mean, it's nice to do. Sometimes, I mean, it's just, I like to go out camping and things like that out in the nature. So inevitably, you're going to end up doing it whether you want to or not. In the grass, I think it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the same thing. I think once you're really in contact with the ground without any kind of insulator, it's just like putting a battery on the ground, a car battery. It'll discharge over time. Yeah, it's kind of like when we were children, we did that stuff a lot more, it seems, and being connected. Yeah, that's what we're going to go over right now. Now we're talking endocannabinoids. Yeah, did I get there? Oops. Yeah, that's what we're talking now. We're going there now. All right, guys. So I just want to clear up everything on the chat. Yes, full rest helps. Yeah, absolutely. Well, most I'd say. Geez, everything is inflammation at some point of it. It's seen as, I guess, the initial stages of where the insult to the injury happens. Right. Yeah. Clears out and we're ready to go. Right. This looks really good, guys. Got them smoking. Introduction and overview of mammalian endocannabinoid signaling. For many centuries, derivatives of marijuana, cannabis sativa, have been known to possess medicinal properties. Identification of 9-tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, figure 14, 1A. Take a look at this so we know what we're talking about. Here's your delta 9. Okay, cool. That's nice. As one of the active ingredients of marijuana, led to the discovery of a group of G protein coupled receptors that bind to THC. 2 cannabinoid CB receptors, CB1 and CB2, have been cloned thus far, with CB1 being the most highly expressed neuromodulatory receptor in the brain. Neuromodulatory receptor in the brain. CB2 receptors, on the other hand, are absent in the brain, but predominant in tissues of the immune system. Wow, that's 2002. So pretty recent stuff. Low levels of N. Oh gosh. Acylphenolamines. Acylphenolamines. NAEs, that's easier to say, are first identified in the mammalian brain in 1965. But the function of this family of lipids remained unclear until this guy, the anandamide, NAE20, one for us easier, was discovered to be an endogenous ligand for CB1 receptors. So inherently it's made, and it's a ligand. So those are the, what are those, like fibrous components? Geez, it's almost like a plant. Ligands are the proteins that were differentiating the plants from algae, wasn't it? right, so here, so let's see what we get going here in the chat while we're thinking about these tough words here, because I don't want to lose our audience. All right. So we got everything going here. Yeah, intended source of healing. Yes, yes, indeed. That's what I guess we're learning here. And it is the intended source of healing, and it seems to mirror our own sources of healing. And that's what I'm starting to realize here. So ligand for CB1 receptors. So these are the ones in the brain. The findings stimulated a flurry of research on the metabolism and biological activities of NAEs in several animal models, which eventually solidified the status of anandamide as an endogenous neurotransmitter. Anandamide as a ligand. Very nice diagram. We got pictures in this book too for all the other words we're reading. All right. Cool stuff. So here's your NAEs, the word that's hard to say. And here's our favorite one, the anandamide. Anandamide. Okay, let's continue. So, structures of selected cannabinoids. There you go. All those good ones there. Has a wide range of neuromodulatory and physiological functions in vertebrates and is drawn in two different conformations. We have NAE types of identified, quantified in plants. So, all right, let's continue here. The CB receptors is somewhat surprising given the lack of obvious structural similarity with THC. But nearly all physiological effects elicited by marijuana have been attributed to anandamide, and the metabolism of NAEs is now considered an integral part of the endocannabinoid signaling system. The activity of anandamide at the CB1 receptor, these are the ones in the immune system, these are the ones in the brain, have been attributed by some to its ability to adopt alternative conformations. So let me get this straight here, because it does get quite confusing, and I want to keep everyone on the same page here. So the CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. These were discovered, CB1 being in the neuromodulatory, meaning for changes in the neuro receptors, and the CB2 are absent in the brain but predominant in the tissues of the immune system. So CB2 is for immune, CB1 is for brain. Let's continue. And then these are all really hard words to say, but what we could say though is that but the function of this family, okay, so these are discovered in the brain. However, we're finding them in plants, and only one plant. And here's where they are. So this is pretty cool here. So the structures of the cannabinoids, the major active ingredient marijuana is a strong ligand for cannabinoid 1 receptors in mammalian brains. Anandamide is an NAE with 20 carbon. It has a wide range of neuromodulatory and physiological functions in vertebrates, is drawn from two different conformations. So CB receptors is somewhat surprising given the lack of obvious structural similarity with THC, but nearly all physiological effects elicited by marijuana have been attributed to anandamide, and the metabolism of NAEs is now considered an integral part of the endocannabinoid signaling system. So it seems like it's a precursor from for this the one that triggers the response in the receptors, the NAE, which everyone is, and then anandamide. I'm getting confused because they all have different numbers after their NAEs, and they're hard to say. But we can just kind of follow along here. The activity of anandamide at CB1 receptor has been attributed by some to its ability to adopt alternative conformations. Although anandamide is most studied NAE type in vertebrates, other endogenous NAEs, such as this one and that one, elicit a number of biological effects in animals, including satiety. Satiety. So they're satisfied, and anti-inflammatory responses. So it's making you feel good, and inflammation goes away, respectively. These are your two studies that I guess demonstrate that the way that these NAEs, the endogenous NAEs, elicit a number of biological effects in animals. So anandamide is the most studied one, but there's other endogenous ones, such as these NAE variants, that elicit a number of biological effects. So here's the effects that we get from the cannabinoids, right? Satiety, right? So you're feeling nice and satisfied, good. Anti-inflammatory responses, those are two very good ones. Some of the cellular processes mediated by NEs appear to be mediated by both receptor-dependent and receptor-independent pathways. For example, anandamide binding to CB1 receptors is known to stimulate these proteins, which in turn influences the activity of a series of second messengers and proteins, including adenylate cyclase, voltage-gated calcium channels, potassium ion channels, phosphatidyl 3 kinase, and mitogen activated MAP kinase. Okay. On the other hand, experiments with mouse cell culture showing that NAE induction of transcription and MAP kinase phosphorylation are not inhibited by that GIO protein blockers or CB1. Okay. Antagonists cannot be taken as evidence for receptor independent signaling. So, cannot be receptor independent signaling. Okay, whatever. I think I'm a little lost in that one there. Let's continue here. The widespread occurrence of NAEs in various plant species, the recent cloning of plant enzyme involved with hydrolysis of NAE, and the identification of high-affinity NAE binding proteins in plant tissues whose binding appears to be influenced by CB receptor antagonists point to intriguing parallels to mammalian endocannabinoid signaling. In this chapter, we review progress in plant NAE research focusing on metabolism and prospective functions, while highlighting avenues for future work and with the hope of generating excitement in this emerging field within plant physiology. And for some reason, I think they'll be able to find plenty of volunteers to work in this exciting field. Right, so I think we're getting way now into the heavy chemistry stuff that nobody wants to hear. So let's get back to the table of contents and see if, where do you sign up? Yeah, this is the kind of science that I'm talking about, right? For science, you're going to do it for science, Craig, for the world. All right. So we get a few more things to look through here until everyone says they've had enough of the plant communications. But we got some pretty cool stuff coming up here in these things here. Let's look at these here. So we left off with the cannabinoids, of course. Regulation of plant growth and development, physiological roles of non-selective cation channels, in the plasma membrane, touch responsive behaviors and gene expression, touch responses that catch attention. Could this be your Venus flytraps and stuff? Yeah. All right. This looks interesting. I know someone was mentioning these, so let's look at this guy. These are cool. I mean, who doesn't like the Venus flytrap? You have not lit off the cannabis yet? We're still on that one? Yeah, we got to check this out, though. We can always come back to that. Okay, so fast reactions are easy to see, and therefore the touch responses of plants like Venus flytrap, sundew, and mimosa are well recognized. Venus flytrap and sundew use touch-sensitive responses to carry out carnivory by cleverly trapping insects. These touch responses enable them to thrive in nitrogen poor soils. Venus flytrap awaits potential prey by spreading its wide and specialized bilobed leafed edges with needle-sharp tines. Trigger hairs on the ventral leaf surface must be touch stimulated multiple times to induce trap closure. Recent examination of the changes that take place in leaf geometry upon rapid closing reveal that the rapid closure comes from a snap buckling of the leaves as they transition from open to closed state. Wow. Yeah, we'll come back to that. It was getting deep into the chemistry, and I don't want to lose our audience here. Everyone's going to want to go off and take a smoke, and then we'll miss it all. All right, let's get on here. Oh gosh, trying to get that guy off the screen. All right, there we go. The signaling that must occur between the trigger hairs and the closure response is still somewhat mysterious. However, intercellular electrical changes are detected and may act as intermediary signals. The sundew attracts insects with its glistening, mucilage-laden tentacles. Insects that alight upon the tentacle surfaces find themselves bound by the gluey mucilage. The agitated movements of the insect attempting to loosen itself from the sticky surface lead to touch-induced tropic and nastic movements of neighboring tentacles. An indentation of the leaf generates a cup-shaped enclosure where the meal is dissolved. The selective sensitivity of the tentacles is remarkable. Darwin reported that the tentacles are capable. Here we go. Here's some tentacles. Let's look at these guys. These are cool as shit. So we have potential prey enters near a Venus flytrap, then the open sundew leaf before it touches. There's your Venus flytrap, getting ready to snap. There's the sundew before it gets it, and there's after. Man, those are cool. Let's see, the bowwort side view with tentacles visible at the right near trapdoor. The doubly compound leaves of the mimosa plant next to it. Cool. Nice. Look at that. That is cool. And what's F? Repetitive touch stimulation leads to a delay in flowering, inhibition of inflorescence, elongation. Wow. Touch twice daily. The plants on the left are untreated controls. Wow. Look at that. Difference from touching. What a difference. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, you gotta admit there's some pretty cool stuff that these plants do here. Kind of wonder, do they know what's going on? All right. Yeah, and oops, it's similar to the pitcher plants. Yeah, yeah. There's some interesting stuff here. The mucilage, right? All right. See where we were here. Trigger hairs and the okay. Recent examination changes that take place in leaf. Got there. Okay. Let's see. Okay. That's where we left off. Oh, here's a sentence right there. It is. Okay. Selective sensitivity of the tentacles is remarkable. Darwin reported that the tentacles are capable of detecting a strand of human hair weighing less than a microgram, and yet rain droplets have little effect in activating the movements. Imagine that. The trap of the bladderwort may operate with similar mechanisms described recently for Venus flytrap. These aquatic rootless plants use a thin-walled hollow sac and a watertight trapdoor as its prison and digestion chamber. Outer walls are curved inward, pulled perhaps by negative hydrostatic pressure inside the bladder. Touch-sensitive appendages extend out near the trapdoor. When these triggers sense touch by water fleas or other similar creatures that have ventured too close to the bladder opening, the door bursts open within 30 milliseconds. And water, and any unfortunate creatures caught in the current, rushes the chamber as the outer walls flip concave to slightly convex in shape. Amazing stuff there. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Touch-induced leaf movements of the sensitive plant are more likely to occur for protective rather than aggressive purposes, and adjacent but untouched leaflets fold up. All the leaflets of the compound leaf undergo this movement as in response to a strong mechanical stimulation, such as wounding. The whole leaf nearly disappears. Electrical, hydraulic, and chemical signals have all been implicated in carrying long-range information that enables responses even in unwounded leaves. Wow. So pretty cool stuff here on these guys here, the vines, tendrils. These are going to give people nightmares here. Which ones have you grown, Nubs? We just talked about a whole bunch of cool ones. Which ones did you grow? So we can let everyone know. And I'm going to get back to the table of contents. Still centered here. So touch responsive. So oscillations in plants. This is looks pretty interesting. We got let's see here, introduction, hierarchy of plant oscillators, spatial and temporal. So it's feedback controlled self-sustained oscillations. Advantages of oscillation strategy. This looks pretty heavy one. Resonant. The last one you talked about, yeah, it's from affected by touch, yes. But look at this, resonant regimes. Strange behavior. Deterministic chaos. Strange behavior. That's just a great statement. See, electrical signals in long distance communication. What about that, man? That looks cool. Ion mechanism of action potentials. 3 are ways of action potential transmission and physiological implication of plant excitation. Slow wave potentials propagating electrical signal unique to higher plants. New effort to decipher the impact of electrical long distance signals. That looks cool. Electro signals, the cytoskeleton gene expressions, the hypothesis on the coherence of cellular responses to environmental insult. Electrical signals and translation, calcium. This is interesting here too. The help, it's a virus hypothesis. Wow. Characteristic function of the phoneme translated electrical signals. So Nub says, like I said earlier, I use magnets. Yes, I saw you saying to use magnets. And the positive and the negative determines the intensity of the plant, would be a good way to say it. Okay, and let's see if we can find something about magnetism in here too. Long distance signal transmission in trees. I want to read this one. This is really cool. Hydraulic signals, electrical signals. This looks really good. It's not too long of a chapter. Electrophysiology and phototropism. Let's see what else we got here. Hydroelectrical integration. Signals and signaling pathways and plant wound responses. Root exudation. Multiple functions of a plant secondary metabolite. Undamaged plants by volatiles. We're going to get these, some of these get really academic. We're going to skip. So yeah, we can get back to where we, I think a good one here was trees talking. It was really cool. This one here. Electrical signals in trees. This is just a remarkable thing. I've heard about this somewhere else before. Why is it going there? Here we go. All right. There we go. Electrical signals. Oh, this looks really cool. All right, you guys ready? The Wounding of a leaf or part of the shoot is known to cause variations in the extracellular electrical potential, measured with surface contact electrodes. This is 1976, 1986, 1989, or with platinum or silver wires inserted directly into the tissues. That's 1995. Wound or stimulus-induced electrical phenomena in plants consists of so-called variation potential, VP, or slow wave, which appears as a wave of negativity with a variable length, shape, amplitude, and propagation velocity, capable of passing through dead tissues, and linked with xylem tension. And briefer and faster signals, called action potentials, APs. So we had, what do you have? VPs and APs. Variation potential and action potentials, considered to be real self-propagating electrical signals. So we have the variation potential, slow wave, appears as a wave of negativity with a variable length, shape, amplitude, and propagation velocity capable of passing through dead tissues, and linked with xylem tension. So xylem and phloem, right? And a brief and faster signals called action potentials considered to be self-propagated electrical signals. That's interesting there. We got here, Nubs. I know you got to have some cool stuff here. Top wire through your stock to buy your tomatoes. Yeah, I mean, I've done that too. I guess it's an interesting thing there, and they make music, huh? Interesting. Trees dodging electrical wires. That's usually the worker crews that come out and trim them around the electrical wires when you're not looking. At least they do around here because the trees grow quick. They love electrical wires here in Florida for some reason. All right. It's also suggested that APs, the action potentials, play a major role in intercellular and intracellular communication, and for regulation of physiological processes at the molecular and the organism levels. Mancuso focused on differences between the the variation potential and the action potentials and their mechanisms of propagation. In fact, action potentials cannot pass through a dead region of tissues. It's still present in plants at saturating humidity, and the amplitude and propagation velocities of APs are fairly constant through the shoots. Wow. It's still present in plants at saturating humidity, and the amplitude and propagation velocity. That's interesting there too. Humidity, saturating humidity. Okay, so since electrical signals have been shown to be widespread in the plant kingdom, it's important to study the physiological processes that might be under their control. So we looked at the light and dark reactions of photosynthesis. I'm still looking for the long distance communication. And too much chemistry again here. Willow roots, endogenous stuff. Okay, but we want color signals. Right on coloration. Those puzzling trees and questions in tree biology. Simply a secondary and mere side effect of leaf senescence in autumn. The degeneration of chloroplasts and the degradation of chlorophyll pigments in colorless low molecular products allows the red and yellow pigments, the carotenoids and flavonoids, to appear from the background. This point of view, however, overlooks two important facts. Many trees do not show any bright coloration in autumn, and more important, there are numerous pieces of evidence that color change is also due to the synthesis of new pigments. Two recent papers have challenged this interpretation by suggesting that these red and yellow leaf colors are an honest signal of the tree's ability to defend itself against potential insect pests. Hamilton and Brown's theory explains that the bright color of autumn foliage is not just a side effect of chlorophyll reabsorption, but acts as a signal for aphids that are looking for a place to lay their eggs to indicate that the tree has invested heavily in chemical defense, and it is, therefore, not suitable for aphids. Hamilton and Brown predicted that tree species which suffer greater insect damage invest more in autumn color than less troubled species. Maples, for example, which exhibit one of the most impressive autumn displays, are some of the most heavily aphid-infested species. Wow. Hagen et al. Explored experimentally Hamilton and Brown's autumn signaling hypothesis in betula, as predicted by the theory. Early autumn color change results in less insect damage the following spring. In addition, from an index of tree conditions fluctuating asymmetry, they found a positive relationship between tree condition and color signal intensity. Recently, Archetti and Leather published the first direct observation of a key assumption of the theory that parasites avoid bright colors. Interesting that parasites avoid bright colors. By monitoring the colonization of the aphid on individual trees of Prunus in autumn, they were able to observe a strong preference of aphids for trees with green leaves, and to demonstrate that aphids colonizing trees with green leaves develop better in spring than aphids colonizing trees with bright autumn colors, which is consistent with the main assumption of the theory. That's a pretty cool theory there, that they use it to scare the insects away and let them know that you're going to get a whooping if you come over here. And there's your conclusions and future prospects for that. So that's some interesting stuff there on that. I think that's pretty much where we'll leave it at tonight. This is an interesting book, very intense graduate level study. So it's supposed to be for the highest practicing scientists. However, this stuff is actually readable for average people, I believe. It's not that difficult to understand, as Nubs mentioned. That being said, I thought it was a very interesting topic, something that's very much overlooked today because of a way of us figuring that we have everything is centered around animals and humans in the central brain as we know it, and we can overlook some of the types of communication systems and similarities that we have with our plant companions here on this planet. So that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and enjoying this today. Tonight, this was an interesting topic to go over. Had some interesting feedback once again from our audience here, which I appreciate. There's always something new to learn, and there's always more that you can get from more people here than just reading alone or just from your own ideas. So it's good to have that exchange, and I appreciate that. Yep. Oh, great. I appreciate you subbing, and we'll be sure to be back here. We do a lot of law topics here. American jurisprudence is a big topic here on this channel. So if you're interested in that, we're going to be going back into that. On the weekends, I kind of move along some other topics of interest just to keep things mixed up and interesting for everyone. On that note, I'd like to say thank you to everyone, too. I appreciate you coming out, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace out.